I still remember the day I signed the papers on my first house. After 15 years of working my tail off, I had finally achieved what felt like the American dream. The ink was barely dry on the mortgage when my phone rang with news that would turn that dream into a nightmare. My parents were facing financial ruin and needed a place to stay temporarily. Little did I know that temporary would include my golden boy brother Trevor demanding my master bedroom in the house I paid for with my own hard-earned money. If you are watching this video, drop a comment letting me know where you are from and hit that subscribe button if family drama like mine makes you feel better about your own situation. Growing up, I learned early that independence was my only path forward. While my parents poured resources into my younger brother Trevor's private education and extracurricular activities, I worked after-school jobs from age 16 to save for college. I paid my way through a state university by juggling 3 part-time jobs and taking out student loans that I would spend the next decade paying off. All those years of sacrifice had one purpose: financial freedom. When I turned 35, that freedom materialized in the form of a beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman-style house in a quiet neighborhood. The place needed work, but it had good bones and a master suite that sold me immediately. The bedroom featured vaulted ceilings, an attached bathroom with a soaking tub, and enough space for a small sitting area where I could read or work from home occasionally. I spent countless weekends installing hardwood floors, painting the walls a calming shade of blue, and adding custom shelving for my book collection. That room was my sanctuary, after years of cramped apartments with paper-thin walls. My relationship with my parents had been strained but cordial over the years. We called on birthdays and holidays, visited a couple times a year, but there was always an undercurrent of disappointment from them that I had not chosen a more prestigious career path than software engineering. Meanwhile, Trevor remained the golden child despite a track record of spectacular failures. Trevor had been given every advantage: private schooling, expensive summer camps, college tuition fully paid. Yet he dropped out after 3 semesters to find himself, which apparently meant cycling through a series of get-rich-quick schemes. There was the organic smoothie shop that closed after 6 months, the cryptocurrency investment that mysteriously vanished, and most recently, a luxury dog accessory business that never made it past the planning stage. Each venture began with enthusiastic support from my parents, including significant financial investment, and ended with them covering his losses. Throughout all this, my accomplishments were treated as the expected minimum. When I got my degree, there was no celebration dinner like Trevor had received just for getting accepted to college. When I landed my first professional job, my mother's response was, "Well, at least it is stable." And when I called to share the news about my house, my father's first question was whether I had gotten a good interest rate, followed by a lecture about the housing market being a bubble. Despite this history, I maintained contact. They were still my parents, and some part of me still hoped for their approval. So when I received the call about their business failing due to the economic downturn, my first instinct was concern, not suspicion. "Of course you can stay with me until you figure things out," I told my mother over the phone, imagining a few weeks of awkward cohabitation at most. "You are such a blessing, Armin," she said, relief evident in her voice. "We will try not to be a burden." I spent the weekend clearing out the 2 guest bedrooms, stocking the fridge, and preparing welcome baskets with toiletries and fresh towels. I wanted to make them comfortable and show that I had built a good life for myself. Perhaps now they would finally see me as successful in my own right. When they arrived the following Monday, my first surprise was the amount of luggage. They had 2 cars packed to the roof with clothes, personal items, and even some furniture. My second surprise came when my father mentioned casually, "Trevor will be joining us tomorrow." His lease ended, and it just makes sense for all of us to be together during this transition. That first night was a preview of things to come. My mother criticized my grocery choices while reorganizing my kitchen cabinets without permission. My father commandeered the living room, turning the television volume up so loud that I could hear it through my closed bedroom door. When I mentioned that I needed to work in the morning, he looked surprised, as if the concept of regular employment was foreign to him. I went to bed feeling uneasy, but convinced myself it was just the adjustment period. We would establish a rhythm, they would find new jobs, and soon things would return to normal. I could not have been more wrong. The next morning, I was making coffee before work when my mother entered the kitchen in her bathrobe, looking like she had been rehearsing a speech. "Armin, dear, your father and I were talking, and we think it would be best if you moved into one of the guest rooms," she said, pouring herself coffee from the pot I had just brewed. I nearly choked on my toast. What? Why would I move out of my own bedroom? "Well, Trevor has those back problems from his college football injury," she explained as if this were perfectly reasonable. "The doctor said he needs a quality mattress and space to do his stretches. Your room is the only one with enough space, and the attached bathroom would be so convenient for him." "Mom, I bought this house. That is my bedroom that I renovated myself," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "Trevor can have the larger of the two guest rooms. It has a queen bed with a brand new mattress." My father wandered in already dressed but looking irritated. "Your mother and I raised you better than this, Armin. After all we did for you, this is how you repay us. By denying your brother a comfortable place to recover. Recover from what I asked. His back issues have never stopped him from playing basketball or going skiing. You always were jealous of your brother." My mother sighed, exchanging a knowing look with my father. "We are not asking for much, just a little consideration during our time of need. To keep the peace, I compromised. Trevor would take the larger guest room with the attached half bathroom, while my parents would take the smaller guest room. I made it clear this arrangement was temporary, expecting gratitude for my generosity. Instead, when Trevor arrived later that day, my mother showed him to his room with an apologetic tone, as if I had somehow failed them all by not surrendering my master suite. Over the next few weeks, my house transformed from my peaceful sanctuary into what felt like a hostile takeover. Trevor treated the place like a hotel, leaving wet towels on the bathroom floor, dirty dishes in the sink, and his belongings scattered throughout the common areas. When I asked him to clean up, he would shrug and say he would get to it later, which never happened. My parents not only failed to correct this behavior, but actively enabled it, picking up after him while letting comments slip like Trevor has always been a creative spirit. Organization stifles his creativity. My home office, which I needed for remote work days, became a community space, despite my explicit boundaries. I would return from the bathroom to find Trevor scrolling through his social media on my computer, or my father rummaging through my desk drawers looking for stamps or paper clips. When I expressed frustration, they acted wounded, as if I was being unnecessarily territorial. "We are family, Armin," my father would say dismissively. "Family shares." The kitchen became a battleground of passive aggression. Despite our agreement that we would share grocery expenses, I found myself buying everything. My carefully planned meals disappeared, eaten as midnight snacks, or incorporated into elaborate dishes that Trevor would cook for himself, leaving the kitchen looking like a tornado had hit it. When I brought up the grocery situation, my mother looked offended. "We are a little short this month," she would say. "Once we get back on our feet, we will contribute more. You have a good job. Surely you can afford to feed your family for a while." That became the refrain once we get back on our feet. But I saw little evidence of them trying to stand up. My father spent his days watching television and claiming he was networking via email. My mother took long walks around the neighborhood and attended free yoga classes at the community center, but never mentioned job applications or interviews. Trevor was supposedly consulting for friends, which seemed to involve a lot of video gaming and very little income. One evening, as I was working late in my bedroom, I overheard a conversation from the kitchen below that made my blood run cold. "This arrangement is working out quite well," my father was saying. "Armin has plenty of space, and the neighborhood is much nicer than our old one." "I was thinking the same thing," my mother replied. "Once we sell the old house and clear our debts, we could contribute to the mortgage here, make it a real family home." "Good idea," Trevor chimed in. "I am actually thinking about turning that front room into a studio for my new business idea. It gets great natural light." They were planning to stay permanently, already reimagining my house as theirs without even consulting me. The final straw came the next day when I heard Trevor on the phone giving my address to someone and saying, "Yeah, come over to our house tomorrow. My brother will not mind if we use the grill." Our house. As if we were co-owners rather than him being a temporary guest in my home. Something inside me snapped, but I held my tongue, knowing confrontation in the heat of anger would only make things worse. Instead, I began calculating how much their stay was costing me in extra utilities, groceries, and personal sanity. The breaking point arrived 3 weeks after their move-in. I had an important client meeting canceled last minute, allowing me to return home unexpectedly in the early afternoon. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed all 3 cars were present, meaning everyone was home. I entered quietly, hearing voices upstairs. Following the sound, I climbed the stairs and realized with growing horror that the voices were coming from my bedroom. I pushed open the door, which should have been closed, to find Trevor lounging on my bed using my laptop with my bathroom door open and the sound of the shower running. "What are you doing in here?" I demanded, shocked, turning quickly to anger. Trevor looked up, completely unfazed. "Oh, hey, bro. Just borrowing your laptop. Mine is acting up." "That is not what I asked." "Why are you in my bedroom, using my shower?" My voice rose as I spotted several of his personal items scattered across my nightstand. "Chill out. The hot water in my bathroom was being weird, and I had a date tonight." "Not a big deal." He closed the laptop casually, making no move to leave. "Not a big deal. This is my private space. We agreed on boundaries when you moved in." Trevor rolled his eyes. "God, you have always been so uptight about your stuff. Remember when we were kids and you would freak out if I borrowed your toys?" "These are not toys, Trevor. This is my bedroom in my house that I pay for." The shower turned off, and to my utter disbelief, my father emerged from my bathroom, a towel wrapped around his waist, using another of my towels to dry his hair. "What is all the shouting about?" he asked, as if it was perfectly normal for him to be using my private bathroom. "Why are you both in here? This room is off limits." We agreed. My mother appeared in the doorway, attracted by the commotion. "Armin, why are you home? And why are you yelling at your father and brother?" The 3 of them stared at me, as if I was the one who had crossed a line. Something inside me broke. 20-plus years of being treated as an afterthought, of having my boundaries ignored and my accomplishments dismissed, came pouring out. "This is my house, my bedroom, my bathroom. None of you have any right to be in here without permission." "Do not speak to us like that," my father said, drawing himself up. "You owe us everything you have. Who do you think paid for your braces, your school lunches, the clothes on your back when you were growing up? I paid you back tenfold by working since I was 16, by putting myself through college, by never asking for handouts even when I was struggling. And now I am paying for all of you to live here rent-free, eating my food, using my utilities, invading my privacy." My mother's face crumpled into an expression of wounded martyrdom. "I did not raise you to be so selfish. Is this how you repay our love and sacrifice? By begrudging your own family a roof over their heads during our darkest hour?" "Give Trevor your room," my father demanded suddenly. "He needs the space more than you do. You are hardly ever here anyway, always working. What difference does it make which bedroom you sleep in?" My mother nodded in agreement. "Either give Trevor your room, or you are not the son we raised." I looked from face to face, searching for any sign that they understood the absurdity of their demand. There was none. In their eyes, I was the unreasonable one, for not happily surrendering everything I had worked for to my brother, who had never worked for anything in his life. "Get out," I said quietly. "All of you get out of my room now." They left, but their expressions promised this was far from over. The next morning, I left for work earlier than usual, needing to escape the suffocating atmosphere of my own home. I threw myself into coding, finding relief in the logical, predictable world of software where problems had clear solutions and actions had consistent consequences. When I returned home that evening, something felt wrong immediately. The house was quieter than usual, with no television blaring or music pumping from Trevor's room. I climbed the stairs with a sense of dread pooling in my stomach. My bedroom door stood open. Inside, Trevor's clothes hung in my closet. His gaming console sat connected to my television. His cologne and hair products crowded my bathroom counter. My personal items were nowhere to be seen. I stood frozen in shock until I heard footsteps behind me. "We moved your things to the guest room," my mother said. Trevor's back was acting up again, and we decided it was for the best. Trevor appeared leaning against the doorframe of what had been my bedroom, a smug smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Thanks for understanding, bro. I really need the space more than you do." "Where are my things?" I managed to ask through clenched teeth. "In the smaller guest room," my father answered, joining the group. "Your mother carefully packed everything." I rushed to the guest room to find my belongings haphazardly crammed into the tiny space. My custom bookshelf had been disassembled, the pieces leaning against the wall. My books were stacked in precarious piles on the floor. The bedding was my old set from college, not the expensive sheets I had recently purchased. My laptop and work materials were nowhere to be seen. Where is my computer? My work documents, I demanded, panic rising. On the desk in the office, my mother replied. We figured you would want those separate from your sleeping space anyway. When I checked, I found my laptop carelessly placed under a pile of magazines, and several of my work folders were missing. The betrayal cut deep, but it was my parents' justification that truly wounded me. Trevor deserves a comfortable space, my mother insisted when I confronted them. He has had such a difficult time lately, and you have always been more resilient. You understand sacrifice. He deserves it more than you do, my father added. You have always been selfish with your success, never thinking about how you could help the family. This is the least you can do. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity the dynamic that had defined my family for decades. I was expected to give endlessly, while Trevor was entitled to take endlessly. My parents were not temporary guests in crisis. They were permanent parasites who would drain me until there was nothing left. That night, locked in the tiny guest room surrounded by the wreckage of my personal space, I made a decision. This would end now, on my terms. The next day was Saturday, which meant everyone would be home. I spent the morning researching tenant laws in my state, confirming what I already suspected. Even without a formal rental agreement, my family members were considered lodgers in my home, and I had the legal right to evict them with proper notice. Armed with this knowledge and a newfound determination, I called a family meeting in the living room. They arrived looking irritated at the interruption to their weekend plans. I have something important to discuss. I began, my voice steadier than I expected. The current living situation is not working and changes need to be made immediately. If this is about the bedroom again, my mother started, but I raised my hand to stop her. This is about respect and boundaries, which all of you have repeatedly violated. So here are the new house rules, effective immediately. I handed each of them a printed notice that stated they had 30 days to find alternative living arrangements. What is this? My father demanded, his face reddening as he scanned the document. Formal notice that your stay here is ending in 30 days, I replied calmly. Until then, there are new conditions. First, I am reclaiming my master bedroom today. Trevor has 2 hours to remove his belongings. You cannot be serious, my mother gasped. I am completely serious. Second, each of you will contribute equally to household expenses starting now. I have calculated your share of utilities and groceries. I handed them another sheet with the breakdown of costs. Third, my home office and bedroom are strictly private. New locks will be installed today. Trevor laughed incredulously. And if we refuse, then the 30-day period becomes effective immediately, and I will pursue formal eviction through the courts if necessary. I met his gaze steadily. This is not a negotiation. After everything we have done for you, my father began, his voice rising. Yes, let us talk about that, I interrupted. You raised me. That was your obligation as parents. In return, I have been a responsible, self-sufficient adult who has never asked you for anything. Now I am asking you to respect my home and my boundaries or to leave. My mother tried tears next. How can you do this to your own family? Where will we go? You managed your lives before coming here. You will manage again. I am giving you 30 days and am willing to help you search for affordable housing options. That is more than generous given the circumstances. Trevor stood up, towering over me, as he had since our teen years, using his size to intimidate. You have always been jealous of me. This is just your way of getting back at me for being the favorite. For the first time, his attempt at intimidation had no effect. This is not about jealousy, Trevor. This is about respect. If you want to be treated like an adult, start acting like one. The argument that followed was ugly. My parents cycled through guilt, anger, and manipulation tactics that had worked on me since childhood. Trevor alternated between threatening me and dismissing the situation as an overreaction. But something had changed within me. Their words no longer had power. By evening, Trevor had grudgingly moved his things back to the guest room. I spent hours reclaiming my space, cleaning thoroughly as if to remove all traces of the invasion. The locksmith came and installed new locks on my bedroom and office doors. I changed my computer passwords and Wi-Fi settings. The physical barriers were important, but the psychological boundary I had established felt even more significant. Over the following days, an unexpected shift occurred. My family's initial outrage gave way to a wary respect as they realized I would not back down. My father began searching job boards, my mother reached out to former business contacts, and Trevor even applied for a position at a local retail store. The first time they all contributed to the grocery bill without being reminded felt like a small victory. The transition was not smooth. There were passive-aggressive comments, slammed doors, and cold silences. But underneath it all, I sensed something I had never felt from them before: respect. By standing firm on my boundaries, I had changed how they saw me. No longer the reliable doormat, I was someone who commanded consideration. 2 weeks into the 30-day period, my father announced he had secured a job interview. A week later, my mother was hired part-time at a friend's boutique. Most surprising was Trevor's transformation. After his initial anger faded, he approached me one evening as I worked in my now secure office. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked, hovering in the doorway. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, half expecting another argument. "I wanted to ask for your advice," he said, catching me off guard, "about financial planning and stuff. You have always been good at that." That conversation became the first of many. As their departure date approached, my family found a small apartment they could afford together while rebuilding their finances. The day they moved out was bittersweet. Despite the conflict, they were still my family, and part of me worried about them. "We will be fine," my mother assured me as they loaded the last of their belongings. This was a wake-up call we probably needed. "You can visit," I told them, surprising myself. "Just call first." The months that followed their departure were a time of personal growth and healing. Initially, I experienced a strange emptiness in the house. After weeks of chaos and conflict, the silence felt almost oppressive. I had won my space back, but found myself questioning whether I had lost my family in the process. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during the family crisis, accepting invitations I would have previously declined. I joined a rock climbing gym, challenging myself physically while clearing my mind of lingering resentments. Most significantly, I found an online support group for adult children dealing with difficult family dynamics. Through those weekly video discussions, I learned I was far from alone in my experience. Many others shared stories of parental favoritism, boundary violations, and the struggle to establish healthy relationships with family members. The group introduced me to books and resources about family systems and emotional manipulation that helped me understand the patterns I had been trapped in for decades. As I gained perspective, my anger gradually transformed into something closer to compassion. My parents had created a dysfunctional dynamic, but they were products of their own upbringings. Trevor had been damaged by their favoritism as much as I had, though in different ways. Understanding did not excuse their behavior, but it helped me process my feelings without being consumed by bitterness. 3 months after the eviction, my mother called to invite me to dinner. I accepted with cautious optimism. The restaurant was neutral territory, and I was surprised to find the conversation almost pleasant. My parents had both secured steady employment, and Trevor had enrolled in community college courses, his first serious educational effort since dropping out of university. "Your standing up to us changed things," my father admitted, after several glasses of wine loosened his tongue. "Made us realize we cannot keep drifting through life expecting others to catch us." My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "We did not treat you fairly, Armin. Not growing up and certainly not in your home. I am sorry for that." The apology was imperfect but sincere. Trevor remained more distant, but even he acknowledged the shift in our family dynamic. "You were always the responsible one," he said, when we found ourselves alone at the table while our parents paid the bill. "I resented that for a long time. It was easier to take from you than to try to match you." These conversations marked the beginning of a new chapter in our relationship. We did not become a perfect, harmonious family overnight. There were still moments of tension, old habits that threatened to resurface. But we were communicating honestly for perhaps the first time in our lives. 6 months later, Trevor called me directly without going through our parents as he typically did. "I got a job offer," he announced, an unfamiliar excitement in his voice. "Full-time benefits, the whole package. I wanted you to be the first to know." That is fantastic, Trevor. I am proud of you. I could not have done it without what happened, he admitted. When you kicked us out, I was furious, but it forced me to grow up in ways I needed to. I invited them all over for a celebratory dinner, cooking in the kitchen that had once been a battlefield of passive aggression. As we ate and talked, I looked around at my family and realized we had all transformed. My parents treated me with a new respect, asking about my projects, and actually listening to my answers. Trevor engaged me as an equal rather than a rival. My house was once again my sanctuary, but now it could occasionally accommodate family visits without becoming a source of resentment. I had learned that standing up for myself did not mean cutting ties completely, but rather establishing the conditions under which relationships could be healthy. The most valuable lesson from the entire ordeal was understanding that true family support flows in all directions. It is not an endless extraction from one member for the benefit of others, but a balanced exchange of respect, consideration, and genuine care. Setting boundaries had not destroyed my family as I had feared. It had given us the framework to build something better. Today, I still live in my house in my master bedroom, with the locks removed from the doors. My family visits occasionally, always with advance notice, always with respect for my space and time. We are not perfect, but we are healing. And that is a kind of victory I never imagined possible when I signed those mortgage papers 2 years ago. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? Let me know in the comments below how you handled the situation and what you learned from it. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences that might help you navigate your own family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing up for themselves is not only okay, but sometimes necessary for healthier relationships. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and your family is to say no when necessary.